comes from Matthew 10:16. See, I am sending you out like sheep into the midst of wolves. So be wise as serpents and innocent as doves. So when I put these together, in my mind, it takes a couple weeks and ideas kind of forming and coming together. And then this one actually took a little bit of a turn just a few days ago, late in the week, and I'd already sort of been going in one direction. I was really excited. I was going to share with you guys about how I've been, practicing what I preach, right? Taking my own advice, managing my preparation process for working out. I've been manifesting. This is the third straight week in a row. Yay for me. I got my 4 days of cardio in 3 weeks in a row, and I've been multiplying, right? So I've been multiplying my cardio workouts, and it's giving me a renewed sense of energy. So much energy. I got so excited about it that Willis had to check me about posting workout videos. Told me to stay in my own lane with the theology and let him do the workout videos. But I was so excited about that, and that is something that I probably will bring back to you guys, because I think it's really powerful to talk about that renewed sense of energy. But late in the week, this week, that still small voice within my spirit said, you really need to focus on wisdom. And at first, I really thought it was just for me. So I spent some time thinking about wisdom and the role that it has played in my life. And as I did that, it became apparent to me that my assignment for this morning was to share some thoughts with you all about wisdom. And I'll get black preachery on y'all for a minute. I don't know who needs to hear this. I don't know who God gave me this message for, but here we go. I'll start by making a note that you all have probably heard me talk about before. So this verse in the Bible in Matthew, where Jesus says, be wise as serpents, it's translated from Greek, and the Greek, in my opinion, doesn't really do the best job with the translation. That word wise in Greek really translates a little better in English to shrewd. So what Jesus is telling his disciples and telling us is to be shrewd here. And he's telling us to be wise, but to be more exact, is really talking about being shrewd and recognizing how the games of this world are played. And the first point I want to share about this particular type of wisdom is that it must be elucidated, right? So somebody's got to shine the light on it. We need wise sages in our lives, Sherpas, rabbis, these trusted advisors who are going to shine that light on us, who are going to show us how this game is being played. And especially when we're young, we need people, because, oftentimes we haven't had enough exposure. And I'll share with you all that I had a brother that we lost a few years ago, this brother named Mr. Angelo Willoughby. Now, Mr. Willoughby had been a driver. He had been a chauffeur to Mrs. Coretta Scott King. And after she passed, he actually began working for the founders of the company that I was working for at the time. And every now and then, when we had a big meeting or something, Mr. Willoughby would drive us to the meetings, right? He might drive us to like City Hall because it's hard to find parking and stuff like that. And he and I got pretty tight. And so he pulled me to the side one day and he said, John, listen, let me tell you something. When you go into these big meetings and you got, something on the agenda that's being voted on, he said, listen, you in City Hall at the city council meeting, or you're at the, county commissioners meeting or whatever, don't pay attention to what's on the stage, man. That's just a show. That's for everybody else. He said, what you need to be paying attention to is what he called the sidebar. He said, John, look around, see who's at the corner of the room, out in the aisles, go out in the hallway, go to the men's room and walk around the hallway, see who's having a sort of private huddle, right? They whispering to each other, trying to, go back and forth while all the show is going on the stage. He said, that's where the power is being decided. He said, that's where your zoning is going to be decided, out there in the hallway between the folks having a sidebar. He said, the folks over in the corner who are, over there having their own little private huddle, whispering to each other. That's who's deciding. That's when when your decisions are being made about whether or not you're going to get this funding that you need for your project. And what I think Mr. Willoughby recognized in me is that, especially as a young man, integrity means so much to me that I could, in being transparent and being fair and all those things, I think he recognized that I might miss that that's not always the way the world works, right? Like I might want it to work that way, and I might even have thought at some point that I needed it to work that way. But the reality is that's not how the world works. And I think Mr. Willoughby saw in me something that was so important. He said, listen, I can't let this young man go and stub his toe, go and make mistakes, because I believe in him and I care about his success so much that I've got to make sure that he understands how this game really gets played. And he had been a fly on the wall in enough rooms where important decisions were being made. He might have just been sitting in the corner waiting to drive somebody home after the decisions were being made, but he understood how decisions were being made, and he elucidated me. He elucidated that for me in my life. And so I want to highlight that. So number one, this type of wisdom, this shrewdness, it must be elucidated. The second thing I want to say about this type of wisdom is that it must be experienced, right? And the best way to experience this type of wisdom is actually to experience the polar opposite of it, right? We will never forget those times in our lives where we got conned, we got bamboozled, we got taken for a sucker. And those sometimes are the most powerful experiences in teaching us about wisdom. I call those things tuition, right? That's the price we pay to get smarter. I'll share a story with you all. I'm not gonna mention any names because some of y'all know these folks. Went to New York to visit a couple of my buddies who live there, and they decide, we're gonna go hang out. They take me to this block in Manhattan where this brother has a 3-card monte set up. I don't know, y'all know what that is? That's where he shows you the queen and then he starts shuffling it around and can you follow the queen, right? And so it looks like easy money. And my buddies had thought it was easy money, and the weekend before had lost about $200 to the same guy, right? So they said, we're going to go back. We're going to see how this thing really works. So we didn't even play this time, right? We just stood in the back and just sort of watched the way this whole thing works. And man, listen, let me tell you, they had such an elaborate setup, right? So it wasn't just a one guy hustling. He had like a piece of cardboard like this, and he'd be, shuffling the cards around. There were at least 6 or 7 people in this setup, right? You got 2 folks on the corner over here, each corner, and they're the lookouts, and they make a sound or whatever that everybody knows, all right, that means the police are coming, wrap it up. And then he had about 4 or 5 fake players who would show up, and he set his thing up, and they show up and start playing and give them $20, and they'd be like, wow, boom, boom, boom. The guy would find the queen, and then the fake player would say, oh my gosh, I can't believe I just won $50 playing this game, and it was so easy, right? So now here comes Johnny Torres, some new guy who doesn't know anything about what's going on. And he's like, wow, these guys keep winning this money. Now he jumps in and loses his shirt. And as soon as he loses his shirt, the lookouts say, whatever, and then the whole thing folds up. He walks down the block. Guy comes back in a couple minutes. Same guy, same fake players, run the whole play again, lure another set of chumps in to lose their shirt. So we sat there and watched that. And I tell you, for about 45 minutes, we just laughed at how, and my buddies who had gotten taken for $200, they weren't even mad about it anymore. They were just so fascinated by seeing how this game played out. So sometimes, it's the times when we actually gotten suckered or realized that things aren't exactly what they seem that are the best experiences for us in teaching us wisdom. And the last point I want to share with you all about this type of wisdom is that it must be embraced, right? So we talked about it needs to be elucidated, it needs to be experienced, but it also needs to be embraced, right? Oftentimes, especially at this point in my life, whenever I'm finding out that there's, quote unquote, new wisdom that I'm encountering, it's actually things that I've already known, and I've known them for a long time. But for whatever reason, I wasn't able or I wasn't ready to embrace them, to accept at some deeper level that these things are actually true. I talked to my therapist, Bernard. You guys probably have heard me talk a lot about Bernard. We talked about this topic in the past, and he framed it so poignantly. He said, wisdom calls to us from within. It's not something new you learn out here. It's something in here in your gut that you already knew, and it calls to you from within, and you embrace it when you're ready to embrace it. And he said, it's always there, and our ancestral guides are what he calls our diamonds, our guardian angels. They stand with us and sort of hold our hand, figuratively, if you will, as we grow into our ability to embrace that wisdom that we already know. And this reflection started off with me being so excited about sharing with the group my newfound strategy for unlocking whatever it is that you desire by ramping up our energy levels. And again, I think that's true, and hopefully we'll get a chance to really delve into that sometime soon. But it turns out there's another strategy that I believe we're supposed to talk about today, and that's embracing the wisdom that we already possess, embracing the wisdom that is already there. And that takes a lot of courage, right? And it's always been there. If it's always been there, there's a reason why we haven't had access to it before, why we haven't been able to grasp it before. We reach a point in our lives where we can embrace the wisdom that's already been there, because now we realize that there's no hard and fast, rigid meaning attached to it. I can pursue money, power, and respect, and I can even use cunning and shrewdness to do it. But that doesn't make me a bad person or a good person for that matter. It's just something I choose to go after or not. I don't have to put any judgment on it. I don't have to put any judgment on myself or anyone else. And maybe the real key to this type of wisdom comes in the other part of the instructions that Jesus gave us, right? He said to be innocent, to be as innocent as doves. And this is another one of those instances where I don't think the Greek does, the translation does a great job from Greek, because it doesn't, well, let me say it this way. There's what I think is a better translation than innocent is actually the Greek here actually translates literally into unmixed or pure. So we can be both shrewd and unmixed or pure. Can we do that at the same time? Yes. What I've found for myself is that I can embrace the shrewdness, the game, the complexity of ways that people move in the world, because I know beyond a shadow of a doubt what I'm supposed to do with my life. And that is unmixed. It is absolutely pure. My job is to help people, especially those who look like those on the Broga chat here, reach their full God-given potential. And that might mean negotiating a complex real estate deal and pulling in different types of financing so that people can have access to affordable housing. It might be figuring out who wants a PR win, so they're going to trade their time and resources to help this neighborhood transform itself. And sometimes that might even mean listening to the still small voice in my spirit that says, switch up the Broga reflection for this week. Each of us is different, though. Each of us has a different assignment, and each of us needs different wisdom for our journey. So whatever it is in your life, embrace that truth, that wisdom that is calling to you from within. Let your ancestral spirits guide you into accepting that reality in your life that you have always known to be the truth, that you have always known to be your truth. But to embrace it, you have to strip it of whatever meanings you've attached to it. It only means whatever you tell yourself that it means. And because you are the author of your story, only you get to decide what things mean in your story. All right. If everybody would, can you guys stand up? I want to get a little more energy in the room, and as well as help transition back into the yoga. All right. And so we'll do our intentions, and when I say all right, I will say I'm going to do this a little bit differently, just so I can help you guys, so you guys know when I say this is our intention, that's when you guys say, and so it is our intention. Okay. All right. So we always start with the first one. It's our custom as we end our weekly reflection. I ask you all would join me in this intention for our time together. Let us be intentional that our Broga practice might be a living metaphor for our life practice. This is our intention.
And so it is.
So it is.
So it is
Our intention.
our intention.
Excellent. Thank you. Let us be intentional about managing our energy flow in manifesting the things and conditions that we want to see in our lives. We know that the world in which we live will always try to make us smaller, pigeonhole us, dictate to us, and define for us the areas where we can be successful. And whether it's through working out or meditating or whatever we find gets us back to a state of abundant energy, let us be intentional about committing to that practice and making that our practice. This is our intention.
And so it is.
So it is.
Our
intention.
Let us be intentional about educating ourselves and others about how the games of this world are played, Let us not be so focused on the way that we think the way that we think the world should work, should be, that we miss our opportunities to do the good that we can do in the world exactly how it is. Let us commit to being both shrewd and pure so that we can accomplish the good that we were put on this earth to do. This is our intention.
And so it
And
is.
so
So
it
it
is
is
Our
our
intention.
intention.
Finally, brothers, let us be intentional about embracing the truth that we have always known within our hearts. We know some truths are complicated, but if we're being honest with ourselves, we know some truths are only complicated because we've made them complicated. Let us uncomplicate our truth. Let us embrace our deeper truth, our wisdom, that we might be beacons for the rest of the world trying to muster their courage to embrace their wisdom. This is our intention.
And so it is.
So it is
our intention.
our intention.
Thank you. We pray these and all things in the names of both our ancestors and our unborn grandchildren. Amen, Ashe, Namaste. And so it is.